Welcome to Joy in the Breakthrough, a podcast where we'll be talking to a wide range of leaders from different generations and backgrounds, leaders who have found power in being broken open. I'm Connie Lindsay.
And I'm Anna Valencia. We are your hosts, and we believe that our challenges can lead to breakthroughs, and we want to share those insights with you.
We hope these stories will inspire you to explore the I'm possible in you. And today, I am honored to be interviewing and talking with my dear friend, Anna Valencia. Anna is city clerk of Chicago, and we're going to hear a lot more about her story. Anna is masterful at breaking through and lives her life with joy. She is a dear friend and someone with whom I'm really excited to have this conversation. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you, Miss Connie. I'm so excited that we're friends and co-hosts now of this podcast of Joy in the Breakthrough.
And the co-host piece is something that's wonderful because we want this to be an intergenerational podcast as we talk to people. And I am happy and proud to share that you were the person who helped motivated me and moved me to get us here. So I am grateful to you for that. We talk often about gratitude. So I'm grateful to you for being an amazing partner and a mentor to me.
Oh, I love that.
On this journey. So thank you for that. But we want to hear from you. And so I'm going to start by asking you to tell us, who is Anna Valencia and what makes you who you are? And I'd like for you to share with us, a crucible moment in your life. And a crucible moment is one of those moments where you had to pivot and were able to break open in order to break through.
Well, I don't often share this story, but, when I was 18, I actually grew up in Southern Illinois. So like you, I'm a transplant to Chicago, but I grew up downstate, and I was first in my family to go to college at U of I, and my dad was a union painter. My mom worked at a nonprofit. I think my mom made $20,000 at the height of her career. And so my parents told me early on that they believed education was everything. And though they didn't get the chance to, finish college, they did take some other courses at community colleges, and my dad got his associates. But they really wanted us to have that experience. And so I got into the University of Illinois, and I remember a teacher of mine, Linda Ames, so if she's listening, this one's for you. And she sat down with my mom and I and really encouraged us to fill out applications to schools, look at financial aid and help us walk through that process because it can be overwhelming. And so I was accepted, and the summer going into that freshman year of college, right before my graduation party, our house had a house fire. And my parents were already devastated from that. And then to learn that I had a gap in my funding for college. And we didn't know if we'd be able to fill that gap. I had already maxed out federal loans and scholarship money. And so we got this call about a week after that house fire from a state representative, and Tom Holbrook. And he said, hey, your daughter won a scholarship. So my mom and I drive up, and we remember thinking, great, maybe, $500, $1,000, whatever helps. And I remember him telling us that he had this education committee, and, my parents didn't know anyone in politics. We were not really part of that. And he said, you want a full ride, a scholarship tuition that was going to be provided. And my mom, I don't think she cried. I think she was in shock and wanted to, probably fall off the chair. And it got me to school. And that was my really big breakthrough, because without that exposure, that experience, that network, because I did not have a network. My parents, didn't know people in politics or government to open doors for me. And so it was that, I did the work of filling out the scholarships, and I had a great mentor and someone opened the door like a teacher like Linda Ames. But it really changed for me the trajectory that I was going. And when I got to school, there was other breakthrough moments. I was around wealth. I had never been exposed to people who had their parents, paying for things for them. And I'm so grateful to so many people. And I don't know if even my college sisters listening would know how much, them covering a meal for me or helping, pay for things at our apartment. Those things went so far for me because I was a work study kid and had to take multiple buses off campus to tutor, and I had to wait tables and, do other jobs, babysit, nannied in the summers. And so I didn't have extra income. And those kind gestures, that giving me rides or whatever they did, helped me in so many ways.
That's incredible. And when people see you today, you're very successful. You're confident in what you do. You're an amazing mom. We'll talk about all of that, and a wife. And what I find most intriguing about the story of your beginning is that it was in some ways connected to politics. And can you share with us how you think that impacted your future and what you chose to do in breaking through into politics? And we'll come back to that moreover. But just share with us at that moment in time when you saw the power of what that could do for good, how did that inform future decisions you'd make about your career and your work?
Well, I got into this role, I wouldn't want to say accidentally, but how I got into government and politics, my dad was painting at someone's home, and he got to know the wife and to come to know that her husband was running for judge in our local county. And my dad said, my daughter is really interested in politics, and she's going into senior year of college, and could she, maybe work for him? So my dad helped me get that in, and just by painting this guy's home. So that's how I kind of got my start, was as an intern, and, understanding, wow, that people get paid to manage campaigns, that they get paid to go door to door, help fundraise. And so that was another exposure moment, which was so important and a breakthrough moment for me, because that campaign manager then introduced me to folks on the Obama campaign in 2007. And I remember buying my first suit at Express and going to the Starbucks and interviewing, and I didn't get the job. And so first failure moment of like, wow, I really wanted something, but it just wasn't right for me. So trusting the process. So I literally graduated college, moved to Virginia.
What did you major in college?
And I majored in international studies, and I wanted to study abroad. And that was another thing that people told me, you can't go abroad. How are you going to afford that? You're a scholarship kid. Well, I got another scholarship. And tuition waived. I was over to go to U of I. And what's so amazing, that scholarship was from Senator James Claiborne, who was from East St. Louis and Granite City, and 5 years after he gave me that scholarship, I ended up working in the state Senate.
Wow.
And I remember going onto the floor and introducing myself to him. And he was one of the very few African-American state senators downstate in that area, which is now pretty red. And I said, I want to introduce you. I am now on the Senate staff, and you sowed a seed in me 5 years ago. And had you not, I would have never had that opportunity to study abroad or even graduate college. And now I'm working at the state Senate.
So that was yet another breakthrough as you transitioned from college, then having that particular position. What came after that in terms of how you thought about your career or what you wanted to do next? And what was the next big pivot point for you leading to a breakthrough?
So, I served as city clerk. I never thought I would be in the front limelight. I always thought I'd be in the back behind the scenes. And I think a lot of times women, we think of ourselves as like the doers, as the chief of staffs or the director positions, because it's safe, right? And in 2016, when Hillary Clinton lost, I was like a lot of the women that were angry and saying, how could this unexperienced man get the top job in our country? And so I, raised my hand and was appointed and then ran. Now, after being clerk for a while, I'm going into my 6th year, I decided to take a really big step and run for statewide office. Secretary of State Jesse White was retiring, and I decided I wanted to take something on, just make the impact even larger and have the opportunity to not only represent Chicago, which has been an honor of a lifetime, but represent my parents downstate and my teachers and the people I grew up with. And I had that unique perspective of understanding Chicago and outside Chicago. And I had become a mother. When I decided to run, Rihanna was only 9 months old. And I remember even, the barriers you face as a woman running for public office or woman of color, fundraising and on the road, and some, I think, well-meant, intentional women that had said some things like, who was taking care of my child when I was on the road?
Those same kinds of biases that we don't expect, we know that they exist, but to have it come from other women.
And my opponent had 3 kids. I was like, are you asking what he's doing and who's taking care of his children? And so it was a climb. It was having to prove yourself, having someone say, get here, and then I'll endorse you or support you or raise this amount of money. And every time you would get to that that goal, they would move the goalpost further and say, no, but I want you to raise this amount and have this much support. But I will say, two women that I have to shout out, Lauren Underwood and Tammy Duckworth, two women of color, supported me early on and said, I don't care, where you're going, you are the future, and we're gonna support you.
Madeleine Albright said there's a special place in Hades for women who don't support other women. It is an important message for us to hear, and certainly we want to understand our candidates and understand and know what their platform is, but the support that you're talking about is so critical.
It's what we're doing, you and I.
All the time.
It's how we've elevated other women, and even when they're not in the rooms, we've spoken for them and stuck up for them and tried to get them into the rooms. And so I think that's what they did for me at the time.
How did you navigate through the moments? I mean, when people were saying things that were not true, or all of the challenges that you faced, how did you keep yourself centered and grounded? And we're going to talk about tips later on, but just in this moment, which was so pivotal for you, and I do want you to share the rest of the story.
Yes.
But what did you do during that time?
So there was the storm, I like to call it, almost a year ago to this podcast that we're launching, which is such a circular moment for me, because in this moment, people will say things about you that are not true. And they will attack your family and your character and your integrity and things that I'd spent my whole life building up. And you know this, when you come from a family where I've come, working class family, first your family to college, you carry a lot of weight with you. And I would never want to disappoint my parents or their name. And so it felt very personal, because I'm like, for women and women of color, we work so hard to get where we are. And so for that to be attacked, it was crushing. And I will not lie that there were times that I broke down, mentally, emotionally, tears, crying on the floor, praying on my knees to get me through the storm. And one thing that I did take up is I had to get rid of the distractions and not listen to the hate. Haters are going to hate. And really surround myself with people who were there to elevate me. And that really helped. So I held on to my faith. I made time for prayer and worship. I stopped, reading the comments. Don't read the comments and stop. Those people don't know me. I know who I am, and I know what God's called me to be. So I had to dig deep and find that voice again. And I'll end the story here. I lost the election last June, and it was painful, because I, again, did not want to disappoint others. It was never about me. It's what a young Latina, Stephanie Diaz, saw and wrote me this letter about what she saw me doing, inspired her at 16 to want to know that she could run statewide one day. So it was never for me. So when I had to go give my speech, no one runs to lose. I was looking at all these faces with tears in their eyes, because I know they were sad. But I told them again, like, there will be more. It's not about me. I will be fine. And I am. I'm still standing. But it was so hard to have to say that, because I did not want to disappoint others that had worked so hard to get me where I am. And later I found out that I never did. Reflecting now, there are so many people who are so happy I did. And I have no regrets about that experience. It really gave me so much growth and shaped me into the woman that I'm sitting here speaking to you about.
Hi, I'm Darius Hillman. Joining me on the next edition of In the Arena, the unsinkable Connie Lindsay. Take a look.
I'm also being and less doing. And when I am being, then I can really focus on where I'm going to have the most impact and how I affect people, not infect people with my attitude.
Join the conversation Tuesday at 7 p.m. on CanTV 19 and streaming on cantv.org and the new CanTV Plus app.
Not often are people self-reflective enough to walk through something like that. And your transparency, I honor you for that, because you are sharing. And for young girls who might be considering going into politics, there is that. I do want to know, after having gone through that, and I know how hard you worked and how intentional you were in going through the healing of that, what did you learn about yourself?
Well, I learned, one, that I need to be more quiet with myself, because sometimes what you want to do is fill that void quickly. And I remember having a session with my therapist, and she said, that big hole, that's grief. And there's a little trauma. My trauma and grief is not as big as others, but that's okay. You still have grief of what you were hoping for, what you're wishing for. And so instead of trying to fill that up with something that just sit with it and see where it takes you. And so I sat with it, And then I also found people who bring me joy, my encouragers, my kitchen table, which I know we'll talk about. I've had to find these people that I could plan for in my calendar. Like I plan for joy. I will tell my tribe, my kitchen table, which is Michelle Obama had said in her last book. And I have to see them. And when I see them and I have coffee with them or lunch with them, they just bring me back up. And they remind me, they put a mirror in front of my face and remind me that I did not fail, that you had to take these big risks and big chances, but it's never failure without learning lessons. And so sitting with myself, journaling, reflecting, praying, making time for people who bring me joy to remind me of who I am and where I'm called to be. And the other thing my coach said, he said, think about the future and not have anxiety about the future brings, but the unfolding of it, the unfolding, watching the beautiful life unfold and try to be present in the life you're living.
Yes.
Because when I finished the race, my daughter was 2. So 9 months to 2, and I felt like I missed a lot. So what is right here for me to be in the present with this conversation or playtime with her, not having to rush to something and missing the beauty of my life right now. And so I've had to work really hard on that. It's not easy.
Right.
It takes time, but it was so worth doing that with me.
That present moment living, we've often heard it said, people say, it's called the present because it is a gift.
Yes.
And when we can be present with others and our families, that's critically important. I do want to ask before we move into the kitchen, how do you define joy?
Well, that is my word for this year. And I really define joy. We talked about this the last episode too, is it is not temporary. It is a feeling inside that stays with you. It's a lightness, if you will. It's a lightness in your step, a little pep in your step. It's for me, it's energy. It's a good feeling energy inside that's kind of warmth, and I feel more at ease. I can lower my shoulders. And that really for me is what joy feels like, and an ease and a lightness. And I can immediately tell with where I spend my time if you feel energized or depleted.
Yes.
And I had to spend a lot of time last year being honest with myself too, I'm a people pleaser by nature. And I will run myself down because I will think I'm not doing enough. I'm not being enough of a mother, a leader for my office, a friend, a wife. And so I'll overschedule myself, trying to be everything to everyone else. And then I'm depleted, and then I'm sick, and then I'm run down, or I'm unhappy.
Right. And it manifests in our attitudes.
Because that not enough is saying I'm not enough.
That's exactly.
And I am enough.
Yes.
And so I have to, it will never change. My coach is like, that will never go away, but you'll be self-aware of it. So you'll know, okay, I'm doing it again. I'm saying I'm not enough, and I'm trying to overschedule to be everything for everyone else and please everyone else. And so I had to be serious about editing some of my friends down. Yes. I still love you from afar, but I cannot say yes to everything that you may need from me, because I have to save that also energy for myself and give a little bit more to me to be able to be there for Riyadh and Rihanna and the people I love.
Can't pour from an empty cup. You've said 2 things here that I think that are important in terms of how you get to those breakthroughs and the support into healing is therapist and coach.
Yes.
Are there a couple things that you want to share about that? Because I think that's important, and I really appreciate your transparency. We're never too old to learn. We never stop learning. But if you could just say a little bit about therapist and coach and what that means as a part of your team.
Yes. I mean, when I started as city clerk in 2017, my friend told me you're hitting a red zone. Fun fact, Connie and I met in the fall while we were having tea on the fall of 2017. That happened to be my budget hearing,
yes,
which was 4 hours long. And I came to meet you for coffee in your office, and I was so beside myself because I felt like I could not navigate this situation. You encouraged me, picked me back up and said, go back in and you've got this. And I did. But it was a time in my life where I've never had therapy. I grew up where it was all about prayer and faith, and it was not something anyone in my family did or talked about. But I did see a therapist, and at first it was kind of awkward. I'm like, what do I do? I talk about my problems. Are you solving my problems? And then over time, I realized, okay, it's really to bounce things off. And for me, it's a safe place to vent. And then we might come up with some things to try, some tips and techniques to try. And then I got an executive coach last year, which is different than a mental health specialist. And this executive coach helped me really define my leadership principles as an executive leader. And am I communicating those leadership principles to my executive team to hold them accountable and hold myself accountable? And, what is it like in just being in my life? What is just natural for me and the gifts I have, and how do I use those gifts? How do I make decisions about my life with my purpose in the center of it? So he gave me a great tip about whether I decided to stay in public service or not after I lost. You really start questioning yourself, is this the right path for me? And he said, put your purpose in the middle, then name your 3 passions, name the 3 roles you play. And that for me is critical of being a leader and a mom and a wife. Those are 3 roles that are really important to me. And so I needed that flexibility with whatever career came so I could continue to be in those roles. And I have to be the leader. I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like if I'm not. But those were, different distinctions between having a mental health therapist and an executive coach.
Brilliant. And hopefully our listeners will get that, because you just really gave some really amazing advice with that. I want to move very quickly to your kitchen cabinet. You talk about that all the time, your kitchen table. Tell us about that and the level of authenticity that comes from having that kind of support.
So I was reading Michelle Obama's book, and I love her. Like, hopefully we're manifesting she could be a guest here one day, or she could be at our kitchen table dinner. I'd have so many questions. Sure. And I recently saw her in December talking about her book tour, and she described her kitchen table in her book about women who may not even know each other, but they're from different maybe parts of your life, and she gets them together, tries to annually. And she also talks about the beautiful of like daisies, like new people to add to your kitchen table. You don't want to go through life without looking at a new flower you can pick to add to your kitchen table. And they play different roles. And so I brought my kitchen table together for my birthday, and I could, pick so many women, because there are an amazing amount of women in my life, and I want to keep doing this where I change it up. But this kitchen table for me are people, again, who bring me joy. They bring me wisdom. I can bounce ideas off of them about motherhood, about friendships. And you leave with a sense of you're walking on clouds.
Yes.
It's not women who gossip or talk down or try to dampen your dreams. No, these are women who, they don't have time to gossip. They have only time for real, honest conversations. And also, women like you and a couple other give me feedback that is with love. It's a direct honesty with love. So I accept it as a gift because I know where it's coming from. And so I think it's so important to do life with people. And whether that's your church group or your kitchen table of women, or however you want to describe it, you have to have those hype people. You have to have those women that are going to text you being, keep going, or take this risk, or we're watching, or that blouse looks great on you, whatever. You need that in your life.
And it's authentic and truthful. And when there is correction, because sometimes we need correction, we get that kind of candor from one another.
And I'm also into no pressure friends.
Yes.
No pressure friendships.
Yes.
Because we have so many things in our life that will pressure us or stress us out. And I want an ease. Like, you know what? If you want to come by to this, great. No pressure.
So now it's an opportunity for you to share with our listeners and our audience a couple of tips and tools that have allowed you to move through, pivot, get to the breakthrough and joy. And I know that joy is your word, and I love it. You even gave me a gift of soap that had joy on it. So it is who you are. You manifest that. So let's hear from you on some tips and tools that you've used, or things that you've used.
Yes. So I love our tips and techniques segment because it's our chance to give back, and hopefully you have had more gems than just what we're giving you. But one tip and technique I want to give to our audience today is the power of your health. If your health and wellness is not taken care of, you cannot serve your children, your parents, your friends, whoever. You can't serve yourself. So Connie told me about acupuncture, and she said she's been a lifelong acupuncturist. And I said, okay, let me try this because I will do anything to help with stress, inflammation. So I tried it. I will tell you, it felt like a massage.
For sure.
I felt like at peace. And so I've done 2 sessions. I'm really trying to also plan and calendar health. You know, your not just your doctor visits, but what are you doing for your mental health, your spiritual health, your emotional health? And so to me, that looks like planning time to rest, calendaring rest on there, you know, and rest sometimes for me looks like cooking. Because I like to use my hands and be creative. You know, I can't just sit down and Netflix and chill, though I know I need that, but that's not always work. And then my emotional health may look like going out with girlfriends for a great dinner or doing a date night with my husband. And then spiritual health is my worship and praise time every morning, you know, really getting to listen. They say, my pastor was talking about this, you only need about 7 minutes of praise, worship, gratitude, whatever you want to call it. And the brain actually shifts and you'll feel a physical change in your body, just 7 minutes a day. So I at least try to get that in. Now, what about you?
For me, it is similar stuff. It's gratitude. I have a gratitude journal and a gratitude jar. It's the meditation. It's physical movement. Going outside to be able to appreciate just the beauty of nature, being by water. All of those things are so important to me. And it's making sure that I stay connected to people who energize me as well.
Connie has taught us so much. I know just by talking to her in the last episode, she has taught me how to say more with saying less. And so this segment is all about learning how to say more by saying less.
Thank you, Anna. It's been a privilege to talk with you. So words have power. Words have meaning. The phrase or the word that I want to give you right now, it's called internal equipoise.
Yes.
As we all look to break through to joy, internal equipoise simply means this, that whatever is going on outside of us, we learn to maintain that sense of calm and peace. And yes, sometimes it's challenging to do that. But internal equipoise says that even in the midst of the storm, I can find myself anchored because of the practices of meditation and calm and quiet and anchored in pure love. Storms come, but when we're securely anchored in that internal equipoise, we can get through to joy. This is Joy in the Breakthrough, and we thank you for being with us.